Hi everyone, it's me, Lubna. Today is Sunday, October 20th, 2024. This video is dedicated to my beloved, and the topic of this video is going to be about extrapolating ourselves into infinity. And I'll explain more about what I mean by that further along throughout this video. But first, I wanted to share a passage from the book that I'm currently reading, which is Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And that is the first book contained within this collection right here. And while I was reading Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, within the third book within Mere Christianity, in the first chapter of that book, I came across a passage in which C.S. Lewis was talking about how every individual human being is going to live forever. And I wanted to share that passage with you today. So I'm going to read that aloud to you now. Here it goes. Again, Christianity asserts that every individual human being is going to live forever, and this must be either true or false. Now, there are a good many things which would not be worth bothering about if I were going to live only 70 years, but which I had better bother about very seriously if I am going to live forever. Perhaps my bad temper or my jealousy are gradually getting worse, so gradually that the increase in 70 years will not be very noticeable. But it might be absolute hell in 1,000,000 years. In fact, if Christianity is true, hell is the precisely correct technical term for what it would be. And immortality makes this other difference, which, by the by, has a connection with the difference between totalitarianism and democracy. If individuals live only 70 years, then a state or a nation or a civilization, which may last for 1,000 years, is more important than an individual. But if Christianity is true, then the individual is not only more important, but incomparably more important, for he is everlasting, and the life of a state or a civilization, compared with his, is only a moment. So I know that in that passage he's talking about this idea in terms of Christianity, but you don't have to be a Christian to apply what he has been teaching in that passage to your own personal life. And I personally don't profess to belong to any particular worldview or faith, but rather I like to analyze them and learn about them objectively and learn something from them, from all of them, and try to apply what I learn to my own personal life if I can, if it helps me to live a more meaningful life. And in that passage, he gave this example about how if he was a jealous person or a evil-tempered person, even though this might not have a noticeable effect on him in a lifespan of 70 years, if he were to live forever, it would make a huge difference, and it would take a toll on him and his spirit and his soul. And so I wanted to relate this to the idea of chaos theory and the butterfly effect, which I talked about in a video that I made about a couple of weeks ago. And in chaos theory, there's this law called the law of sensitive dependence on initial conditions, which states that if the initial conditions of something, some event, are modified slightly, that can have a huge effect on the overall outcome many, many years and a long time from the period in which, or the moment in which that little change was made. Similarly, if we make a specific change in our behavior, let's say in terms of our health or our eating patterns, like if we start eating more ultra-processed foods every day with every meal, initially we might not see a difference, but over time this change builds up and it takes a toll on our health. And that's why you see that Among children, depending on what they eat, it doesn't really make a difference. There's not much variation in terms of health, whether children eat like junk food or healthy food, but over time, this difference accumulates, and we see much more variation in the health of older individuals, and we see much more variation in the prevalence of chronic diseases among older individuals than among younger individuals. But I wanted to relate this back to the topic of this video, which was the extrapolation of ourselves into infinity. And in mathematics, there is this idea of limits. And I have an extensive background in mathematics. I took many math classes in like high school and in junior high. I took calculus in 8th grade and then multivariable calculus in 9th grade, introduction to differential equations and linear algebra in 10th grade, math class at Harvard between my 10th and 11th grade years, and then complex analysis in actually my senior year. In my junior year of high school, I took abstract algebra. All of that to say that it's time for me to realize that everything is related, and mathematics is related to psychology, which is related to other types of science, which is related to sociology, and basically everything comes together. And using my mathematical knowledge now, and the idea of limits in mathematics, in which we have a mathematical expression, and if we take the limit of that expression in which there's an unknown variable, if we take the limit as that unknown variable approaches infinity, we see what the value of the mathematical expression approaches overall as time, or that variable approaches infinity and gets larger and larger. And we can apply that to our own lives, and we can think about how our own behavior in small ways gradually builds up over time to produce a large outcome in the long run in our lives. And we have to imagine what it would be like if we were to live forever, and if we were to continue behaving in the ways that we behave right now. Like if I were to eat ultra-processed food and junk food with every single meal, initially, as I said, I might not see a difference right away in my health, but if I were to live forever, I would be a very unhealthy person. And similarly, in regards to like our spiritual behavior, our internal behavior, if we are kind, if we are disciplined, if we are a good person on the inside, then if we were to extrapolate that out into infinity and imagine that we were to live forever, that would have a very positive outcome. Whereas if our behavior today and like each behavior that we perform was kind of negative or evil in some way, involving jealousy, anger, lying, anything like that, and if we were to extrapolate those behaviors out to infinity and imagine that we were to live forever, to continue living forever with those behaviors, it would be having a very negative impact on our soul, and our soul would be of a very poor quality. We would be a poor quality person. So by sharing all of that, I wanted to encourage you to imagine what you would be like and what your soul, your spirit would be like if you were to continue behaving in the ways that you are behaving right now forever, and if you were to live forever this way. How would you turn out like 1,000,000 years from now if you never died and you stayed this way forever? And I hope that when you think about that, it influences you to try to modify certain things in your behavior that might not be so good for you, whether that has to do with health, and the example of diet that I had provided about avoiding ultra-processed foods or other behaviors that are not good for your health, like use of drugs or alcohol or tobacco, or in terms of your behavior, you could apply this, especially in terms of your behavior. Are there certain things that you do or ways that you behave that are not so good for you? And I hope that with that, you've learned something very valuable from my video today about how to extrapolate your current behavior into the future, into infinity, so that you could shape yourself into the person that you want to become and into the soul and spirit you want to have. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for watching my video today, and I wish you a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, or whatever it is, wherever you are in the world.